Celina Jeanette Mays was born May 28, 1984, to Lynn Vitale and Crescenzo May Jr.'s, better known as CJ. Their life together in the beginning, to say the least, was rocky. Lynn was an exotic dancer and addicted to heroin, and CJ was a musician. He had a little bit of a criminal past. He had been convicted of armed robbery in 1975, admitted to domestic abuse, as well as the abuse of alcohol and drugs. CJ, Lynn, and Celina moved from Miami, Florida in 1986 to Palmyra, New Jersey. But in 1990, CJ and Lynn split up, with Lynn staying in Palmyra with Celina, and CJ moving to Willingboro with his sister, Sarita Smith. Lynn had kept primary custody of Celina during this time, but according to reports that I found, CJ had zero contact with Celina. He didn't call her or write or even visit her, and he didn't pay any child support. Lynn and Celina, however, got into quite the routine as a mother-daughter team. Lynn got a job cleaning houses and motels before she got a better-paying job as a custodian at the Palmyra School District. Celina and her mom were inseparable. They spent a lot of their free time volunteering. They helped with cancer drives, and they also liked cooking and delivering meals to their neighbors in need. They had such a strong bond together. But sadly, in 1994, Lynn suddenly died from a brain aneurysm. Celina, of course, took this especially hard. She was just a 10-year-old girl, and her mom was her whole world. Celina then went to live with her mother's side of the family. At this time, Celina became the beneficiary to her mom's life insurance policy that was $50,000. She also started to receive survivor benefits from Social Security. CJ then stepped in and filed for custody of Celina. The custody hearing lasted 3 weeks, and he was ultimately awarded custody. Then Celina moved in with her dad in Willingboro, New Jersey. Here is where Celina's life not only changed, but it changed so drastically. I cannot stress how much of an understatement that is. CJ was married to a woman named Yvette, and she had a teenage son named Enrique, and the two of them had a 4-year-old daughter named Nori. Now that sounds like a typical blended family, but when Celina arrived at her new home on Crestview Drive, she wouldn't be living with just her stepmother and step-siblings, but CJ also pulled her out of school, and she was going to be homeschooled. While these are changes that may be hard for a 10-year-old girl to adjust to that had just lost her mother, there were many, many more changes. When Celina arrived at her new home, it wasn't like your typical home. The house was near the church that Celina's aunt was the pastor at, and the family was heavily involved in the church. It was actually the center of everyone's world. The house on Crestview Drive not only had Celina and her family living there, but also about 15 other people lived there. They were mostly family members, but they were all church members of the Gospel of Christ Church. In fact, it was not a choice. If you were a member of the church, you had to live here. Now, this house was set up with several bunk beds that lined all the rooms like a dormitory. The rest of the church members lived with Sarita, CJ's sister, in the church's rectory. All the adults in the church had a job within the church. Actually, very few members of the church held jobs outside of the church. CJ was the church's bookkeeper, and Yvette was one of the church's secretaries. All of the children that were in the church with their parents were all homeschooled together. The children and the church members had little contact with the outside world, especially Celina. She was homeschooled, attended long church services, Sunday school, and only ventured out to take part in the church's fundraising. Now, I know I'm talking about this church a lot, but I want to go into more detail and some backstory of this church if it wasn't suspicious enough, because this plays such a huge role in Celina's story. Sarita Smith, Celina's aunt, was originally a member of the Christ Gospel Ministries International, which was a Pentecostal church. In 1988, she earned her minister's license through this church and then founded Gospel of Christ Ministries, her own church that she was the pastor at. In 1991, some of the congregation members filed complaints against Sarita that she ran the church like a cult and was using brainwashing techniques. This led to an investigation by Christ Gospel Ministries International. They found Sarita had mismanaged the church's funds and that she ran the church as an authoritative figure. They pulled her minister's license and the ability to use the Gospel of Christ Ministries name or to use any of the church's teaching materials. In turn, Sarita tried to sue them for slander, but she eventually withdrew her case. Instead, she just ended up changing her church to the Gospel of Christ, and with no one overseeing how the church was ran, Sarita had full power to run the church however she chose. In 1993, she bought an old Catholic church and its rectory, as well as the place on Crestview Drive. Church was every Sunday with morning and evening services along with Sunday school. Each service ran between 5 to 6 hours long. As you can imagine, it was an all-day thing. People also shouted, spoke in tongues during the services, and Sarita not only was in charge of the church, but she was in charge of each church member's life, ruling with an iron fist. Remember when I said Celina was receiving survivor benefits from Social Security? Well, Sarita controlled that too. Everything that happened, Sarita was to be informed, and she must give her permission to anything that happened. That included marriages and anyone that joined the church. Unlike churches that I've gone to in the past, anyone is invited to attend, but not Sarita's church. Everyone who wanted to join needed Sarita's approval. The church membership was invite only. Now I'd like to get a bit of an inside look at Celina's life at the Crestview Drive house. There are interviews available that you can listen to and read about from a girl named Tawana. She lived at the house as well during the time that Celina did, and they were really good friends. When Tawana was around 13 years old, she and her mother became church members when Tawana's mother had fallen on hard times. Tawana and her mother moved into the Crestview Drive house, and right away, Sarita took or gained custody of Tawana. Celina and Tawana become friends because oftentimes they were paired together for the fundraising that the church did. I haven't talked about the fundraising yet. I've mentioned it a couple of times, but this is something that the church members did very often to raise money for their everyday needs. Like I mentioned also that the members of the church weren't working outside of the church. So they went out almost every day for 16 plus hours a day, selling things like baked goods and Mary Kay cosmetics. Tawana was a few years older than Celina when they met, but she was very protective of Celina. In the fall of 1995, Celina got her first period when she was just 11 years old. Tawana would ask her every month if she had any of the supplies that she needed. Tawana would ask her every month if she had the supplies she needed and would get them for her if she didn't have them. You know, things like pads, tampons, those type of things. Then in May 1996, Tawana asked if she needed her feminine hygiene products, and Celina said no. At first, Tawana didn't think much of this, because we all know that cycles can come at different times of the month, especially when you're younger. When Tawana asked again, Celina said no again. She becomes suspicious. And that's when Celina came to her and confided in her that she might be pregnant. Celina opened up right away that Sean, her cousin, was the father. Sean was Sarita's son, and he was 22 years old. He was also married with a child from his wife, as well as 2 other children by 2 separate women, and they were all members of the church. Sean was a self-employed music producer and worked for a security company. Sean lived at the Crestview Drive house, but his wife and children lived in the church's rectory. Celina told Tawana that Sean told her he had connections to her favorite music artist, and he promised her that if she went into the attic with him and had sex with him, that he would get her autographed tickets. This, of course, shocked Tawana, because not only was Celina just a child, but because of her own experiences with Sean Smith. Tawana told At Large with John Walsh in an interview that Sean had been sexually abusing her since she and her mother moved into the Crestview Drive house. Tawana, still a minor at the beginning of 1996, had gotten pregnant by Sean as well. He had paid for Tawana to get an abortion. Tawana said that only her and Sean knew about the pregnancy and the abortion out of fear of public shaming. Sean also wanted Celina to have an abortion. After Celina told Tawana what had happened, she took Celina to a clinic for a pregnancy test, but she also wanted to take one since Sean was actually still abusing her. Celina's, of course, came back positive, but Tawana's was negative. Celina was only 11 years old and now pregnant. Celina went to her father and her aunt after the test at the clinic to tell them that she was pregnant, but that she also wanted an abortion. They completely refused, stating it was against their religious beliefs, but that she could place the baby up for adoption if she chose to do so. Celina wasn't given a choice. She was going to be forced to carry and deliver a baby at 12 years old. Here is where Celina told Tawana that Serena told Celina to tell everyone that the father was a 16-year-old boy that she met at a skating rink. Now, what I previously said is that Celina was sheltered and not allowed to go anywhere. Somehow, a child that wasn't allowed to go anywhere or do anything was allowed to go to a skating rink alone and ended up getting abused there. It just doesn't make any sense. After this, Sarita took it upon herself to bring Celina up in front of the congregation to shame her for the pregnancy every chance she got. Sarita would blame Celina for getting pregnant, but according to Tawana and past congregation members, this is what Sarita did when you did something without her permission. There was such a lack of support for poor Celina. No one would buy her any maternity clothes or even let her wear bigger clothes. As her belly began to grow, she only had 2 outfits that would fit her, and absolutely nothing was bought for her baby. Despite all of this, Sarita did end up taking her to an OBGYN who happened to be one of her friends. Her name was Dr. Dolores Williams, and she described Celina as an emotionally mature child and that she looked forward to becoming a mom and diligently took her prenatal vitamins. Tawana, however, did get something for Celina that was for her baby. She bought her a diaper bag that had a few baby blankets inside of it from a local Goodwill store. Tawana said that Celina told her that she had to hide the bag from her family because she wasn't allowed to have anything for her baby. Tawana also said that Celina was so happy to have that bag for her baby and was even picking out baby names. In the fall of 1996, Tawana's mom was able to get on her feet and in her own place. She moved out of the Crestview Drive house and into her own apartment. As Tawana's mother did this, Sarita kicked her out of the church, but kept Tawana in the church and the house on Crestview Drive because Sarita had legal custody of Tawana. Tawana's mom regained custody in October 1996, and Tawana moved out of the Crestview Drive house into her mother's apartment. Tawana was 17 at the time, but in November of 1996, Tawana turned 18. And it wasn't long after her birthday that Gospel of Christ members paid Tawana a visit to, quote unquote, encourage her to return to the church. That also meant that she would have to leave her mother's house and move back in to the Crestview Drive house. At first, Tawana did not want to leave her family, but then she thought of Celina. Not only did she miss her, but she was also very worried for her. So against her better judgment, she went with the church members and moved back into the Crestview Drive home. Tawana made it very clear in interviews, and I believe her, that she went back only because she felt like Celina needed her there. As Celina's due date drew closer, a C-section was scheduled because due to her size as a child, it may not have been safe for her to deliver a baby. Tawana said Celina went to her father and begged for them to leave the Crestview Drive house before the baby came. She said that CJ told Celina that after the baby was born, they would get a blood test to prove that Sean was the father. CJ also told Celina that they would also leave the church, move down to Florida, where most of his family was, and take Tawana with them to help care for the baby. On Sunday, December 15th, 1996, after the early church service, the evening service was canceled, and this was something that never happened. Church services were never canceled. That evening, everyone had a late night treat of ice cream. Celina put her dish in the sink, and then she hugged and kissed her family members goodnight. Celina's stepmom, Yvette, remembers something odd. She said that after Celina said goodnight, she turned to her and CJ and said, "Thanks for everything." And then she went up to her room around 11 p.m. Celina's last sighting was at 1 a.m. on the 16th of December. Someone in the house seen Celina go back into her room. The next morning, while CJ was making breakfast, he asked his 4-year-old daughter, Nori, to go and wake Celina up because the food was almost ready. Nori went upstairs and found a bunch of pillows in Celina's bed, but Celina wasn't there. Nori came back downstairs and said Celina was gone, that there was a bunch of pillows in her bed instead. CJ went upstairs to see what Nori was talking about, but Celina wasn't sleeping in her bed. It looked like Celina had not gone far because in her room was her purse, her prenatal vitamins, and her Walkman. 3 items that CJ said that Celina would never leave her room without. It wasn't until 3 days later that CJ came into the Willingboro Police Department to report that his daughter was missing. He failed to mention that his daughter was 9 months pregnant. The police said it struck them as odd because typically, when parents discover that their child is missing, they call the police right away. They do not wait 3 days and then come down to the police station to make a report. When the police arrived at the Crestview Drive home to begin conducting their investigation, they were met at the door by CJ, who would not allow the police inside. He said he didn't own the home and that he couldn't let them in because it was his sister's house. This is when CJ mentioned to the police that his daughter was in fact pregnant and due to give birth in 2 weeks. The police went back to obtain a search warrant for the Crestview Drive house, but the judge denied the warrant, stating that there actually wasn't any proof that a crime took place at the Crestview Drive house. The police then tried to search the rectory of the church, and Sarita, who owned the rectory, wouldn't let them inside. Her reasoning was that Celina didn't live there. Police were coming to dead ends to try to even begin investigating the disappearance of Celina Mays. In the end, the only search conducted was a quick once-over inside the church with Sarita following them around. After that, the investigation remained open, and the only people to call and get updates on the case were Celina's family on her mother's side. No one from her dad's side of the family, especially her own father, would call for case updates. Police stated that they would have to call CJ to update him because he just didn't call. The police would also ask CJ or the family members in the church if they would come and help search for Celina, and CJ's only response to them was that it's in God's hands now. When the police would try to contact CJ's family members for more questioning, that was also a no-go, especially Sarita. She refused to answer any questions that the police had for her. With the police investigation at a stalemate, they then went on to try to get any information they could about the father of Celina's baby. Surely he could give some insight. The father of Celina's baby was never officially known. According to family members belonging to the church, they said they tried everything they could to figure out who the father was, but that they could only come up with the father being this unknown 16-year-old boy from the skating rink. They also said that Celina wouldn't tell anyone his name. Tawana, Celina's close friend, of course, has a different story. There were also rumors that CJ himself was the father. The police went to CJ about this. He provided proof from his doctor that he had had a vasectomy 2 years before. After CJ provided proof to the police, he was no longer named a suspect. There were several reports of Celina's sightings, but they never panned out. Later, CJ did say that he believed his daughter planned her disappearance. NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, ended up mailing out 73 million postcards to people in the United States in hopes that someone somewhere had seen Celina. Over the course of someone missing, police usually get thousands of tips over the years. But over the course of 29 years, police have said that they only received around 250 possible sightings or tips. In January 1997, a little over a month after Celina had disappeared, Sarita held a sermon and victim-blamed Celina. Sarita said, "I knew she was up to something. I warned her that you lied through this whole pregnancy. That it wasn't her fault. She couldn't watch Celina 24 hours a day. She also said that age is nothing but a number, and Celina chose to run away." Sarita wasn't the only one that felt this way. Yvette, her stepmother, tried to talk to Celina about how she shouldn't flirt with older men. She said to Celina that Celina getting pregnant was a bad choice. So every adult around her blamed Celina for her own abuse and assault. The law didn't blame Celina, though. The law in New Jersey states that anyone under the age of 13 having sex is a crime. And of course, an 11-year-old consent to anything. Celina's doctor was a mandated reporter and failed to report anything which could have helped protect her. Tawana stayed with the church until the spring of 1997 after feeling unsafe around Sean. She moved back in with her mother and went to the police that summer with another member of the church to press charges against Sean. She and this other church member told the police everything about the sexual assaults, the pregnancy, the forced abortion. Tawana also told them everything about Celina. Unfortunately, though, with Celina missing, there was no way to prove that Sean was the father. In December of 1997, police issued a warrant for the arrest of Sean Smith for aggravated assault. This also included assault charges for another 13 and 14-year-old within the church from the years 1992 until 1995. For whatever reason, I couldn't find that out within my research, but Sean wasn't arrested until 1998, and he was arrested at the courthouse on an unrelated child support hearing. Sean was held with a $50,000 bail. I wasn't able to find out who bailed him out, but he was bailed out, and he was due in front of a judge that May, but for whatever reason, the charges were dropped before he could go in front of a judge. In 2007, CJ left the church and relocated to Florida. In an interview with the Philadelphia Daily News, CJ admits that he was under his sister's influence during his time at the church. CJ says that he knew at the time when he lived at the Crestview Drive house that the father of Celina's baby was Sean. He also knew that Sean was the father of several children within the church. CJ also stands by the statement that he does not know where Celina is or what happened to her. There was a tabloid reporting that Sean was used as a stud to try to impregnate as many church members as possible to grow the size of their congregation. I don't know how much truth there is to that, though. Celina's family has hope that Celina would be alive out there somewhere today with her child alive, living away from her father's side of the family. In September 2017, Celina's father, CJ, passed away from cancer. The following year, in August 2018, Sarita died. In August 2020, Sean died from COVID. With all the key players having died in recent years, it's hard to get movement on Celina's whereabouts and her case. At this time, Celina's case is not a homicide because there's no evidence still, after all this time, that there was any foul play. This case remains active and open as a missing persons case. If you have any information leading to the whereabouts of Celina, please come forward. If you see something, say something. At the time of Celina's disappearance, she was 5 feet tall and 120 pounds. She has brown hair and brown eyes, and she would be 40 years old. Her child would be 28 years old. You can contact the Willingboro Police Department at 1-609-877-2200 at extension 1080 with any tips, and you will remain anonymous.